I planted these trees. I'll never see them be mature. I'll be long dead before they've grown up. But that to me is one of the things that's most rewarding about my job, is that the decisions that I'm making now is something my great grandchildren will benefit from the work that's happening in the state parks today. My name is Jason May, and I'm the Natural Resource Specialist for Bastrop and Bastrop State Parks. So going through this area is pretty similar to what pretty much all of the park looked like before the catastrophic wildfires in 2011. It was a very densely forested area, actually probably denser than is really healthy for the forest. You can see here through the brush line, there's very little room for wildlife to get through. There's very little ability for sunlight to penetrate down to the forest floor to help the native grasses and wildflowers to grow. And this is kind of the situation we're in, combined with the unprecedented drought of 2011 that really created a tinderbox for those catastrophic wildfires to happen. These dense fuels, high temperatures, and dry conditions, it was just an explosion waiting to happen, and that's what happened to us in 2011. So, you know, this area here wouldn't exist without the prescribed fire that was done in 2010. So shortly before the catastrophic wildfire in 2011. By doing that, by basically removing, by burning off that underbrush in a low intensity setting, there wasn't the fuel load, there wasn't the wood on the ground to carry it up into the tops of the trees and kill them. So that was one of the major benefits of having the prescribed fire here. We continue to do those prescribed fires though, to keep, so you can see this is a couple years old from the last time we burned. This is starting to grow up. In another 5 years, it's going to be this big. Well, that will be past our 7-year window if we want to come back and reburn these areas every 3 to 7 years. Like that natural cycle of low intensity fires. So hopefully in the next year or two, we'll burn this area again, knock this brush back down again. That'll open up a little bit bigger area, allow for more native grasses and wildflowers, and keep that load of brush and fuel down so that when a fire does come through here, it doesn't reach the intensity to harm the mature trees. There's people, the last time they saw a lot of smoke in the air, they lost everything they owned and almost died. What I try to explain to them is, like, you know, where we are, fires happen. We can't do anything about that. It is not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. So if we can do it while we have the firefighters on the ground ready to go, doing it under conditions which are much more moderate than a catastrophic wildfire, it is far safer and more beneficial for us to do it on our terms when we're ready for it than for it to be the surprise wildfire that we have to react to. And that is better for saving people's lives. It makes it safer for people. It makes it more likelihood that it's not going to impact any property. And here in the park, if we're able to burn large areas of the park when we do have another catastrophic wildfire come through, if we had burned that fuel off that year, that fire basically stops. Though this looks pretty devastating as it is right now, this is actually a fairly healthy wild type of fire to move through this environment. This area was able to start really regenerating itself pretty quickly. The one thing that won't regenerate really quickly are the pine trees. They will eventually regenerate themselves, but that process would take hundreds of years. So this is probably a prime example of where we'll come in and do some replanting of pine trees to kind of speed that process up so it can happen on more of a time scale that works for humans. Instead of hundreds of years, compress that down into decades instead of centuries. In most areas where there's devastating wildfires, post-wildfire, there is a manual you get. This is, okay, this is how you fix the damage that was done by the wildfire. And so big fire out in California or Montana or Wyoming, post-fire, you get the manual, this is what you do to fix everything to get it back to normal again. That actually doesn't exist for this part of the world. This is a very unique ecosystem, and a lot of the practices that are so common in the Western United States just don't work as well in this part of the world. So what we're doing here in the park is trying to rewrite one of those manuals of what are the best practices post-wildfire to restore this land, not to necessarily what it was of dense vegetation, but back to a healthy ecosystem again. Some of it we know, some of it we guess at, and some of it we're still continuing to learn right now.